why is like Mara and other like maybe and other beings able to influence the human beings more to do more like unwholesome things than wholesome things and
Are you
not
saying
have a much more wholesome outcome.
are you saying why are they interested in doing that, or is why are they capable of doing that?
I mean, they're capable of doing it, but I'm asking like why are human beings more attracted towards doing unwholesome things in a way?
Because of the pollution of the mind. With the mind's pollution and lack of wisdom, it just doesn't understand what it doesn't understand. So when there's a lack of wisdom and there's pollution in the mind's going to lean towards those things. So sensual desire, for example, the mind's going to be very enticed into that because it's looking to get those pleasant feelings. And the mind in the unenlightened state, when it's chasing towards craving, and it actually gets what it wants and it gets those pleasant feelings, it kind of feels like the chase was worthwhile because it gets this reward. It's like, wow, this was like validating to the unenlightened mind that this chase was worthwhile because the mind likes that chase. And in some respects, it actually enjoys the chase. And then when it gets to what it wants and it gets those pleasant feelings, it's like, wow, this was all worth it. But the unenlightened mind doesn't see the other side of that. It doesn't see the painful feelings are coming right after these pleasant ones. So that's why the Buddha makes it so apparent to us that if we allow the mind to continue to get the temporary pleasant feelings, the painful ones are coming right after it. So that's why a human being can easily be influenced, and why it's capable of being influenced is because of its lack of wisdom and its pollutions. And that's why once you get to a certain level of wisdom, like in the jhanas, that's why the Buddha says that Mara is blindfolded, because now you have too much wisdom that Mara can't influence you anymore because you already know what's wise and unwise in this situation.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, let me see if we have any other questions. Thank you, everyone on Facebook, for letting me know that there was no audio. I got that fixed. Thank you so much. Okay, so now we'll move to the next chapter. I don't see any other questions. Is there someone in Zoom who would like to read this one, chapter 82? Okay, Vibhav, go ahead, sir.
7 vows for achieving the status of ruler of the heavenly beings. Monks, in the past, when Sakka, ruler of the heavenly beings, was a human being, he was a Brahmin youth named Magha. Therefore, he is called Maghava. Months in the past, when Sakka, ruler of the heavenly beings, was a human being, he gave gifts in city after city. Therefore, he is called Purandada, the urban donor. Months in the past, when Sakka, ruler of the heavenly beings, was a human being, he gave gifts considerately. Therefore, he is called Sakka. Months in the past, when Sakka, ruler of the heavenly beings, was a human being, he gave the best house. Therefore, he is called Vasava. Monks, Sakka, ruler of the heavenly beings, thinks of 1,000 matters in a moment. Therefore, he is called Sahasakka, thousand-eyed. Monks, Sakka's wife is the Asura maiden named Suja. Therefore, he is called Sujampati, Suja's husband. Monk, Sakka, ruler of the heavenly beings, exercises supreme sovereignty and rulership over the Tavatamsa heavenly beings. Therefore, he is called ruler of the heavenly beings. Months in the past, when Sakka, ruler of the heavenly beings, was a human being, he adopted and undertook 7 vows, by undertaking of which he achieved the status of Sakka. What are the 7 vows? As long as I live, may I support my parents. As long as I live, may I respect my family elders. As long as I live, may I speak gently. As long as I live, may I not speak argumentatively. As long as I live, may I reside at home with a mind free of the stain of selfishness, freely generous, open-handed, delighting in letting go, devoted to charity, delighting in giving and sharing. As long as I live, may I speak the truth. As long as I live, may I be free from anger. And if anger should arise in me, may I eliminate it, cut it off. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Vibhav. So here, this is showing up in this particular book because this book is about the realms of existence, and we're in the subcategory of this book about the heavenly beings. And here the Buddha is talking about Sakka, which he refers to as the ruler of the heavenly beings. And you'll see the Buddha talk about this being in other places too. And while that is not necessarily important, because as I've shared before in these classes, the cosmology that existed during that time frame isn't something that you need to know. It's interesting to be exposed to it and understand it to a certain degree, but you don't have to memorize that. It's not important for your enlightenment to eliminate discontent feelings, because there's nothing about that cosmology that's going to necessarily help you eliminate discontent feelings. But it's interesting to know what they were talking about and what they were discussing at that time. More so, a chapter like this, which is really helpful for you, which the Buddha is describing the 7 things that allowed this particular being Saka to become this being, are these 7 vows. And while this is what allowed this individual to become this ruler of the heavenly beings, you can actually take these and you can understand that these are important for your practice to be able to get to enlightenment. So supporting our parents, and that doesn't necessarily mean financial support, right? So supporting our parents, there's multiple ways to do that. Respecting elders, speaking gently, not speaking argumentatively, living open-handedly and generous, speaking the truth, and eliminating anger from the mind. And these are things that you learn in some of the other kind of different teachings that the Buddha shares. But here, this is a place where you can also gain some insight into what are the things that lead to enlightenment. Because the same things that lead to rebirth in the heavenly realm are the same things that lead to enlightenment as well. That if you were actually working on the path to enlightenment and you fell short of enlightenment for any reason, there's the potential that you could be reborn in the heavenly realm. Even though that's not the goal of these teachings, that is a potential. So anytime you see anything that's leading to enlightenment, that will also lead to the heavenly realm. But also anytime you see the Buddha talking about something that leads to the heavenly realm, those are also things that lead to enlightenment as well. So you can set your goal on getting to enlightenment, and now using these types of discourses to understand that these are qualities that you would like to cultivate in your practice as well. So these 7 are things that you can cultivate, not because you're interested in being Saka, the ruler of the heavenly beings, but because you know that this is also what leads to enlightenment. So that would be wise for you to cultivate these qualities. So let me know what questions you guys have here on this chapter. You can put that into Facebook, YouTube, or in Zoom. Okay, I don't see any questions. So let's go to the next one. Is there someone who would like to read chapter 83? Okay, Tonka, go ahead, ma'am.
Offering for the heavenly beings. The perfectly enlightened one gave thanks thus to Sanitha and Basakara, the chief ministers of Magaha, in these verses after he had finished eating his meal. In whatever realm the wise man makes his home, he should feed the virtuous leaders of the holy life. Whatever heavenly beings there are who report this offering, they will pay him respect and honor for this. They tremble for him as a mother for her son, and he for whom heavenly beings tremble is always happy.
Okay, thank you, Tonka. So here, this is after the Buddha had received an offering and had finished eating his meal, he spoke these things. And this was something that you can see in the teachings of the Buddha, that he occasionally did this, that, or at least he probably did it regularly, but it got documented occasionally, right? That here the Buddha is saying some words after he's eaten. And this is helpful because you can understand that an enlightened being, of course, is thankful and grateful for the things that are given to them. All too often, if you make an offering to an ordained practitioner nowadays, they may not even say thank you to you, which is unwise of that individual. And this is one of the reasons why we see a lot of temples in the world really struggling and maybe even closing down if the ordained practitioners aren't showing appreciation and gratitude towards the household practitioners for the support that they're giving. Then those household practitioners may not be interested in supporting them continuously and on an ongoing basis. So this is helpful to be able to see throughout the Pali Canon that the Buddha gave thanks to the people that were making him offerings. Because if it wasn't for that, he wouldn't be able to eat, he wouldn't be able to have shelter, he wouldn't have clothing, he wouldn't have medical care. These are all things that people were giving to him. And of course, he was giving them wisdom in the teachings, but you're not going to be arrogant and prideful and walking around and be like, I'm giving out all these wonderful teachings. I don't even have to say thank you for the things that I'm getting. This would be like entitlement, right? But instead, even though the Buddha was giving all this great wisdom to help people journey towards enlightenment, he was still grateful and appreciative and thankful for the things that people gave to him. And he would say things sometimes like a little teaching, sometimes it was a little bit poetic and things of that nature that he would sometimes share. So this is just one of those things. And the things that you can glean from this is that, of course, be thankful and be appreciative when people are giving you things, right? If you have a coworker or a neighbor or somebody like this, even if it's something that you know you're never even going to use, it's wise to say thank you when people are practicing generosity, because then they would be interested to practice generosity continuously, and it reinforces for them that generosity is wise. So let me know if you guys have any questions on this. You can put that into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, or you can raise your hand in Zoom and ask any questions that you like. So it looks like Tonka might have a question. Go ahead, ma'am.
Teacher David, I just find this word tremble for him as a mother for her son, like trembling seems to be a very strong word. If we are talking about not being attached and have cravings, I just find that trembling seems to be very strong.
Sure.
So I was wondering how you see that. Thank you.
Yeah, the Buddha isn't saying that this is what you should do. He's basically saying like this is what is, right? So he's like describing an analogy. He's giving some images that people would be familiar with to be able to understand what he's teaching. So here he says, in whatever realm the wise man makes his home, he should feed the virtuous leaders of the holy life. Okay, easy to understand. Making generosity, practicing generosity to the teachers who are sharing the teachings about the path to enlightenment or the holy life. Whatever heavenly beings there are who report this offering, they will pay him respect and honor for this, right? Saying that these heavenly beings respect and honor people who are practicing these wise teachings of generosity. Okay, that's easy enough to understand because heavenly beings are interested in wholesome things happening. They see someone that's practicing generosity to support the leaders who are sharing the path to enlightenment. Sure, the heavenly beings are going to be pleased with that. And then he says, they tremble for him as a mother for her son, and he for whom heavenly beings tremble is always happy. So what he's saying here is like that same, mindset of a mother trembling for her son because of the affection she might have for that son. She will tremble for that. He's basically saying this affection that these heavenly beings have for a person who practices generosity is similar to this. Because an unenlightened being would understand that, right? But the Buddha's not necessarily saying you should tremble. He's just sharing an analogy that somebody would understand and be able to relate to. Okay, let me see if we have any other questions here. All right, I don't see any other questions. So let's go to the next one. This is chapter 84. Is there someone who would like to read this? Okay, Yihang, go ahead, ma'am.
Thank you, Teacher David. The Supreme, sorry, Teacher David, I just wanted to mention, I'm not sure if it's my screen, but the screen seems like per couple of seconds swifting a little bit, like shifts a little bit.
I don't see it on mine. Does anyone else see that? I don't think so. Yeah. It might just be on yours, Yihang. Some impermanence there you have to sort out.
Okay, that's okay also. The supreme honor and respect. Ananda, prepare me a bed between these twin saw trees, with my head to the north. I am sleepy and would like to lie down. Ananda, these saw trees have burst forth into an abundance of untimely blossoms, which fell upon the Tathagata's body, sprinkling it and covering it in homage respect. Divine coral tree flowers fell from the sky. Divine sandalwood powder fell from the sky, sprinkling and covering the Tathagata's body in homage respect. Divine music and song sound from the sky in homage respect to the Tathagata. Never before has the Tathagata been so honored, respected, appreciated, admired, and adored. And yet, Ananda, whatever male or female ordained practitioner, male or female household practitioner, resides practicing the teachings properly and perfectly fulfills the way of the teachings. He or she honors the Tathagata, has deep respect and appreciates him and pays him the supreme homage, respect. Therefore, Ananda, we will reside practicing the teachings properly and perfectly fulfill the way of the teachings. This must be your goal and objective. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Yihang. And it does look like other people are experiencing this. So let me just try this. I don't know if this is going to fix it, but it's something that I can do here. Has that helped anything at all on your guys' side? Is you guys still getting the shaking? You guys are giving a thumbs up. That must mean it's working. Okay, so it must have worked. Perfect. Okay. All right. Thank you for that, Yihang. I appreciate you sharing that with me. Okay, so here, this is a discourse where the Buddha is having this discussion with Ananda that is essentially documented where there was this miracle that was performed. A Buddha doesn't actually perform miracles except for one miracle that they will perform when they first start their teaching. They will perform a miracle for kind of a small instrumental group of people that are instrumental for that Buddha to be able to bring their teachings into the world. But they don't keep performing miracles over and over and over again because they're not interested in convincing people that they're a Buddha, because one of the powers that a Buddha has is for other people to not know that they're an actual Buddha. And by people not knowing that they're a Buddha, they can observe the quality of their student's mind, and now they can offer them teachings that are going to help them. Whereas if everybody knew who a Buddha was, they would all be on their best behavior around this person potentially to a certain degree, and it would kind of mask what's going on in their own mind and the pollutions of their mind, so the Buddha wouldn't be as effective in actually sharing the teachings to help people get to enlightenment. So this particular miracle wasn't performed by the Buddha, but it was observed by Ananda. And Ananda is one of the closest, or was one of the closest students to the Buddha, and he was around the Buddha for a very long period of time, from pretty much the beginning of his teaching career all the way to the death. And this individual is thought to have either been his cousin or his brother-in-law or something like this. And he's credited with having the deepest memory about the teachings, so that when the Buddha died, about 3 months to 6 months after his death, a group of 500 enlightened beings got together, and Ananda was one of those. And Ananda was the one who recounted the teachings the most clear, and other enlightened beings were essentially agreeing that that was the teachings that led to their enlightenment. Because once you get to enlightenment, you will never forget the teachings that actually led to your enlightenment. You will always remember those. But in terms of the word for word of exactly what the Buddha said, Ananda is credited for that. And that's why you see a lot of these discourses have Ananda as part of them. So here, the Buddha saying to his student, hey, can you make me a bed over here between these two trees? Right? Because the Buddha was homeless, right? He was a prince destined to become a king, but he left from that, and he slept in his students' houses, and he slept in the forest and these kinds of things. He just slept wherever he needed to sleep. So Ananda is making this bed, and now all of a sudden there's this bursting of blossoms, and there's this powder that's being sprinkled and covering the body of the Buddha. So this particular miracle is honoring and respecting the Buddha. And notice here that we don't see the Buddha go into all kinds of arrogance and pride and conceit and, wow, look at me, this great miracle that was performed on my behalf. Aren't I special? Right? That's not what a Buddha is going to do, because they're enlightened and they don't have ego anymore. Right away, he turns it into a teaching that can be useful for Ananda and people long after the Buddha's death. That here the Buddha basically says, okay, this miracle is really great, essentially is what he's saying. And there's this great respect that was paid upon me through this miracle. But really, if somebody's truly interested in respecting me, they would learn and practice the teachings. That's the way to respect a Buddha, because a Buddha has done a significant amount of hard work to be able to get to enlightenment by themselves without the help of any teachers or any guides. If you think enlightenment is challenging to get to enlightenment with the help of teachers and a community around you, you have no idea what it takes for a Buddha to get to enlightenment by themselves. They have to persevere for multiple years. And they're doing that for their benefit of improving the quality of their own mind, but also the individual knows eventually that they're going to be a Buddha, and they're doing this out of loving kindness and compassion for all of the world. That loving kindness is a genuine interest in seeing all beings be well, and compassion is the concern for the misfortune of others. That's why an individual who's going to become a Buddha perseveres, is that they're trying to solve the problem that they have within their own mind, but they know once they do that, they're going to be able to help countless people during their lifetime and long after their death. So they persevere to be able to make their way to enlightenment. And then having gotten to enlightenment, they then persevere to be able to share their teachings in the world in such a way that countless people can get to enlightenment. And then after their death as well. Because the way that the teachings of a Buddha get propagated into the world is through the hearts and the minds of their students. That when the students are learning and practicing and developing their mind and cultivating the wisdom and making their way to enlightenment, that individual is going to have the wisdom that they need to be able to get to enlightenment. But then slowly but surely, that wisdom is going to continue from there. Because if you have a life partner, if you have children, your boss, your coworkers, your parents, your siblings, they're all going to have certain struggles and challenges in their day-to-day life. And you're going to be right there to be able to help them with the wisdom that you have. And now they learn a little bit about these teachings and they propagate into the world. And the number one goal that a Buddha has is to be able to share the teachings into the world so that countless people can get to enlightenment because they have that concern for the misfortune of others. A Buddha understands what it's like to be unenlightened. They understand the misery and the struggles and the grief and the sorrow and the despair because they were unenlightened at one time too. But then they also understand the joy and the peace of the enlightened mental state and how wonderful that is. And they would like to see everybody experience that. So they persevere to be able to share their teachings, and they're interested in seeing as many people get to enlightenment as possible. So this goal or objective or interest that a Buddha would have to share their teachings into the world and reach countless people, one of the best things that a student could do to respect that Buddha would be to learn and practice the teachings, because that's going to help the teachings to propagate in the world and actually help to reach this goal or this objective that a Buddha would have for countless people to be able to get to enlightenment. So that's what the Buddha is saying, is that's the true way to respect him. You know, you go to some places and you see people that are bowing to statues, that are praying to statues, that are feeding statues and praying to the Buddha and all these other things. None of that stuff is what the Buddha taught. None of that would be respectful to the Buddha, because that's exactly the opposite of what the Buddha taught. Now, I know those people really think in their minds and in their hearts that they're actually showing respect to the Buddha by doing those things, but actually those are just the opposite of what the Buddha taught. So if somebody was really deeply interested in showing respect to the Buddha, it would be to learn his original true teachings, making their way to enlightenment, training their own mind, experiencing that enlightened mental state, and then where appropriate and people are interested to learn the teachings from you, then you can share that with them. And that's the true way to respect an individual who's a Buddha. And in fact, we can even expand this beyond a Buddha or a teacher who's sharing the teachings of the Buddha, like the path to enlightenment. If you were learning welding, or you were learning to be an electrician or a hairstylist or a makeup artist or anything, and you had a teacher who was taking their time, effort, energy, and resources to guide you and teach you about that particular craft, one of the best ways to respect that person is to learn and practice their teachings, right? That would be the very best way, is that this carpenter or this makeup artist is doing a great job at learning and understanding what is being taught and then applying that craft in their day-to-day life. And that would be the best way to respect that teacher too. So respect is an important thing. Sometimes people think that, I'm not going to respect you until you respect me. This is sometimes what people are taught, and this is going to lead you astray. Because if everybody was doing that, nobody would be respecting anybody, right? Because everybody's holding back their respect, waiting for the first person to be respectful. Well, if everybody did that, nobody would be respecting anybody. So you're going to need to move beyond that and respect everybody. And understand that respecting people doesn't mean you're putting yourself below people. Sometimes people think that way, but you can respect somebody while thinking of everybody as equal. And here the Buddha is explaining how to respect him by learning and practicing his teachings, but you can expand this well beyond this and understand that you need to respect all beings in order to be able to fully train the mind to get to enlightenment, where you have this respect and appreciation for the people around you. So let me know what questions you guys have here. Remember, you can put that into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, or you can raise your hand in Zoom and ask any questions that you like. Okay, I don't see any questions. So now we'll go to chapter 85. Is there someone who would like to read this? Okay, it looks like Richard. Go ahead, sir.
The path to the company of Brahma, the Brahma Viharas. What student is the path to the company of Brahma? Here a monk resides, cultivating 1/4 of the mind filled with loving kindness, likewise the second, likewise the third, likewise the fourth. So above, below, around, and everywhere, and to all as to himself, he resides, filling the all-encompassing world with a mind filled with loving kindness, tremendous, distinguished, measureless, without hostility and without ill will. When the liberation of mind by loving kindness is developed in this way, no limits in action remains there, none persists there. Just as a vigorous trumpeter could make himself heard without difficulty in the 4 quarters, so too, when the liberation of mind by loving kindness is developed in this way, no limit in action remains there, none persists there. This is the path to the company of Brahma. A monk resides, cultivating 1/4 with a mind filled with compassion, likewise the second, likewise the third, likewise the fourth. So above, below, around, and everywhere, and to all as to himself, he resides, filling the all-encompassing world with a mind filled with compassion, tremendous, distinguished, measureless, without hostility and without ill will. When the liberation of mind by compassion is developed in this way, no limits in action remains there, none persists there. Just as a vigorous trumpeter can make himself heard without difficulty in the 4 quarters, so too, when the liberation of mind by compassion is developed in this way, no limits in action remains there, none persists there. This is the path to the company of Brahma. A monk resides, cultivating 1/4 with a mind filled with sympathetic joy, likewise the second, likewise the third, likewise the fourth. So above, below, around, and everywhere, and to all as to himself, he resides, filling the all-encompassing world with a mind filled with sympathetic joy, tremendous, distinguished, measureless, without hostility, without ill will. When the liberation of mind by sympathetic joy is developed in this way, no limits in action remains there, none persists there. Just as a vigorous trumpeter can make himself heard without difficulty in the 4 quarters, so too, when the liberation of mind by sympathetic joy is developed in this way, no limit in action remains there, none persists there. Again, a monk resides, cultivating 1/4 with a mind filled with equanimity, likewise the second, likewise the third, likewise the fourth. So above, below, around, and everywhere, and to all as to himself, he resides, filling the all-encompassing world with a mind filled with equanimity, tremendous, distinguished, measureless, without hostility and without ill will. When the liberation of mind by equanimity is developed in this way, no limit in action remains there, none persists there. Just as a vigorous trumpeter can make himself heard without difficulty in the 4 quarters, so too, when the liberation of mind by equanimity is developed in this way, no limit in action remains there, none persists there. This too is the path to the company of Brahma.
Okay, thank you, Richard. So here, this is the Buddha talking a bit about the Brahma Viharas. So let me kind of paint the background of what was going on at this time before we start talking about this discourse. Prior to the Buddha and during the Buddha's lifetime, there was a very strong caste system in place within the region of the world that the Buddha was in. He was born in what we refer to as Nepal, and he taught in what we refer to as Northeast India. The Brahmin class was considered a group of people that you would be born into, and that by being born into that family, you were immediately considered to be holy. And now you were kind of having this authority to be able to perform rites, rituals, ceremonies, worship, prayer, and things of this nature for other people. And people would come and they would pay you money, and then you would be compensated for these rites, rituals, ceremonies, worship, and prayer that you would do. And now, as having paid that money, you were to go home and your life was going to become better because these people that were holy had done these rites, rituals, ceremonies, and worship for you. And people were taught that they couldn't really improve their life. It was more so that these Brahmin were going to do these ceremonies for you, and then that's how your life improves. Well, the Buddha understood that that's not how the world works, that it works through the cultivation of wisdom and making wise decisions that lead to wholesome results, the natural law of karma, of cause and effect. So these Brahmin who were practicing in a large group of the entire population, essentially, were believing these kinds of things, the Buddha was essentially sharing something that was completely opposite of what these individuals were teaching. But nonetheless, these individuals, they were, of course, doing what they thought was wise, what they thought was best. They had all the best intentions in the world. And what they were trying to do is help people to get closer to God and have a relationship with God. And that God was referred to as Brahma during the lifetime of the Buddha. So people who talk about the Buddha never taught about God, or some people will go as far as say the Buddha rejected God or denied the existence of God. This isn't actually true. The Buddha taught about this being. He just didn't put God at the center of his teachings, because it's not God who determines whether you get to enlightenment or not. It's you and your decisions that determine that. So he put you at the center of his teachings. So as these rites, rituals, ceremonies, worship, and prayer were going on for compensation and pay, these individuals who were Brahmin, which we might refer to as Hindu priests, they were not only doing those kinds of things, but they were teaching some amount of moral conduct and things like this to the people that were learning with them. So this word Brahma Viharas comes from the word Brahma meaning God, and Viharas meaning to dwell with, or a dwelling, or to reside with. So these four mental states that I'll refer to as mental states, or the four healthy mental states of loving kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity, are thought by the Brahmins that if you practice these, it'll bring you closer to God. And of course, that wasn't the goal of the teachings of the Buddha. The teachings of the Buddha are to liberate your mind in cultivating a mind that is completely peaceful and joyful, where you don't have any of the defilements and the pollutions. And you eliminate those discontent feelings like anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy. All of those things can be eliminated through transformation of the mind and through training of the mind. So while the Buddha was exposed to the Brahma Viharas and understood what was being shared in that time and space, that it was to bring you closer to God, he understood that these four healthy mental states were an important part of the path to enlightenment, but he never taught it as this is what's going to bring you closer to God. He taught it as this is what's going to transform your mind away from the defilements and eliminate and eradicate certain strong feelings. So, for example, loving kindness is to have a genuine interest in seeing all beings be well, active goodwill towards all beings without judgment. If you practice that and you fully cultivate it and you fully permeate it in the mind, you'll get to a point where you no longer have any anger, frustration, agitation, any hatred, bitterness, hostility, irritation, annoyance, even the slightest dislike towards other beings. Because the mind's cravings, the mind's expectations and the wants, if you come in contact with people who do things the way you want and the way you expect, you will like them. But if people don't do things the way you expect or the way you want, you will dislike them. And what's going on there is the mind has craving, desire, attachment, of course, wants and expectations, but it also has a certain amount of anger, hatred, and ill will, and all those lesser versions like frustration, agitation, annoyance, and dislike. But if you cultivate the mind and permeate loving kindness in the mind, where you have a genuine interest in seeing all beings be well, and you understand the universal truth of impermanence, that not everybody is going to be the same way, and you don't have that expectation, then you don't hold up these expectations in your mind where you like and dislike people, or you're bitter and harsh and hostile with people when they don't do things your way, right? Because that's like an animal trying to fear another animal into doing things your way is by being bitter, harsh, and hostile. But if you understand that your feelings are being caused by your own mind, and that unwise moral conduct is just driving people away from you, instead, you would like to be loving and kind with all beings around you. So the Buddha shares loving kindness meditation to essentially rewire your mind to be able to have loving kindness, and to then go out into the world and practice it through your intention, speech, and actions. And you need to practice it fully, because you see here that the Buddha talks about cultivating 1/4 of your mind filled with loving kindness. But that's not where you stop. The mind is not fully transformed there. You need to get to the point where the entire mind is permeating with loving kindness. That's why he says the second, the third, and the fourth, because that would be 100% of the mind. 4/4 would be 100%. And now this loving kindness is permeating in the mind. And now you have this mind filled with loving kindness, where now you don't have any hostility or ill will in the mind. And now the mind is liberated from that ill will. It's liberated from that hostility. Because when you carry around resentment and bitterness and hostility, it's just causing harm to your own mind. And now when you go out into the world, you're carrying around that burden of the resentment and hostility in your mind. And now you're, projecting that out into the world on other people. But when you develop this loving kindness and you're practicing that in the world, what the Buddha is saying is there's no more limiting actions, because your anger, hatred, ill will, your resentment and bitterness, even the slightest dislike towards others, it will limit you in being able to love all beings and have relationships with people and to see true reality and just love them as they are. Because your ego in your mind will think that my way is the right way and everybody else's is the wrong way. And that's the arrogance and the pride that the mind has. And now it limits you from being able to just love all beings. There's a limiting action there. So when you liberate it with loving kindness, there's no limiting action that persists there. And now your mind's liberated and free to be loving and kind with all beings around you, right? So this is loving kindness, that it's going to eliminate anger, hatred, ill will, frustration, agitation, annoyance, the bitterness, harshness, hostility, the resentment, even the slightest dislike, not only towards others, but towards yourself as well. And then the compassion is the concern for the misfortune of others. What this does is it brings your mind to the middle, away from indifference, because that's one side of this, that if you see people struggling in the world, maybe they're homeless, maybe they're addicted to substances or anything like this, you might be like, I don't care. It's not my friends, not my family. Why do I care? Right? You might be indifferent. You might be like, that's their karma. Who cares? Right? But then your mind could be completely on the other side of that, where your mind is worried and having anxiety about every little thing that's happening in the world. Oh my gosh, these children don't have food, right? They're sick and they're ill, right? And if you're worried and having anxiety about that, your mind's not in the middle and it's not liberated. And you can't make wise decisions to potentially take action, right? Because compassion isn't the action. Compassion is the mental state that you would like to maintain. Whether you actually put any action towards helping an individual who's experiencing misfortune, that's a whole separate discussion, a whole separate question that you need to answer for yourself in each individual unique situation. But by having this compassion where you have the concern for the misfortune of others, your mind can be in the middle, where you're not indifferent and you could care less about people, but your mind also isn't worried or having anxiety about what's going on either. That's where the mind can come to the middle. And that's what's ultimately going to help you to get closer and closer to enlightenment. Because indifference or this place where you're worried and having anxiety, your mind's not in the middle and it's not liberated and it's not peaceful and it's not joyful in either one of those situations. Then you've got sympathetic joy. This is the joy for others' success, even if you didn't contribute to it. This is the opposite of jealousy or envy, right? So you might actually have a certain amount of sympathetic joy. Maybe you have 1/4 of sympathetic joy in your mind. Maybe when somebody's going to a certain city or town that you've been to and you've traveled to, and they say to you, hey, I'm going to go to Thailand. And you're like, sweet, I've been to Thailand. That's a great place. Enjoy yourself. Have a great time. That's sympathetic joy. right? But then let's just say you're at a company and you're applying for a position and your coworkers are applying for a new position where there's new money, there's a bigger title, there's a nicer office, better responsibilities, and now somebody else gets the job instead of you. And now maybe you're jealous or envious. That's coming from your craving, desire, attachment. The mind wants this thing that this other person's getting, and now there's this jealousy or this envy in the mind, right? So when that's bubbling up in the mind, it's actually being caused by your own mind. And if you only have 1/4 of sympathetic joy in your mind, you can be joyful for others' success in certain situations, but in these other situations, you're more challenged, right? And that's why the Buddha is saying you need to develop a second, a third, and a fourth, where the mind is fully permeating with this sympathetic joy. So even in the situation where you really wanted that job and maybe you had a craving for it, and gosh darn it, you would have really enjoyed having that job and someone else got it, you need to bubble up this loving kind, or you need to bubble up this sympathetic joy where you have this joy for others' success. And now this can spill over into your relationships with other people, and you can have this joy for others, and you're not envious and jealous. Then there's this equanimity. Equanimity is calmness and composure, especially in a difficult situation. This is the evenness of temper, right? And this is wise to have and cultivate, because if your mind doesn't have equanimity, that means it's shaken up, it's unsteady, it's unstable. Right? So say you get a call that your mom has been in a terrible car accident and she's being rushed to the hospital and she's in the back of an ambulance. Well, if you're attached to your mom, if you're having craving, desire, attachment, or you're craving your mom to be permanently healthy, when you get that phone call, your mind will be all shaken up. You might grab your keys, rush across town, maybe get into an accident yourself on the way. Or at the very least, you'll show up to the hospital with your mind all shaken up. And now when the doctors and nurses are trying to explain to you the things that are going on with your mom so that you can make some wise decisions to help her, you can't, because you can't understand what it is being shared with you because your mind is all shaken up, right? So what the Buddha is teaching you is to maintain your calmness and your composure, because when you have calmness and composure, you will have mindfulness or awareness of mind. When you have awareness of mind or mindfulness, you'll have concentration or focus. And when you have concentration and focus, you'll be able to access your wisdom, make wise decisions, and then you'll be able to experience wholesome results or wholesome karma. Because when your mind's shaken up and the mind is uncalm, you lack mindfulness, you lack concentration, and now you lack the ability to access your wisdom and now produce wise decisions that would produce wholesome results. So if your mind can be calm and composed with equanimity, which is calmness and composure, evenness of temper, especially in difficult situations, when you get that phone call that your mom's being rushed to the hospital in the back of an ambulance, she's been in a terrible car accident, you can think to yourself, okay, well, mom's in the best place that she could be right now. She's in the back of an ambulance with emergency medical technicians. Perfect. That's exactly where I'd like her to be. And now she's going to be arriving to a hospital with sophisticated equipment and doctors and nurses that are going to be able to take care of her. They're very skilled. They're going to be able to help her. Let me make my way to the hospital calmly, because whether I get there in 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, or 30 minutes, it doesn't really matter, right? Because when I show up, I would like to have a calm mind so that I can listen to the doctors and nurses, find out what's going on, and then start making some decisions to help mom. So that's where the equanimity is really benefiting you. And you're not interested, again, in just having 1/4 of a mind filled with equanimity. You'd like your entire mind to be permeating with equanimity, where you have calmness and composure in all situations, especially in difficult situations. Your child gets hurt on the playground, someone gets in a car accident, someone's been diagnosed with a terminal illness, whatever it is, you would like to have calmness and composure in all these different situations. And that's what's going to lead to your being able to make wise decisions to produce wholesome results. Now, there's another part to equanimity here. The first part is the calmness and composure, evenness of temper, especially in difficult situations. But the root word of equanimity is equal. The other part of equanimity is to treat all beings equally. Because what the Buddha is doing, in addition to helping you understand the pollutions in your mind and navigate the world wisely through the natural law of karma and awakening to that wisdom so you can navigate the world wisely with the natural law of karma, he's teaching you how to navigate the world full of unenlightened beings. That's part of what his teachings are doing for you. Because when you practice things like right speech, for example, this unenlightened being is going to be less likely to get their cravings triggered and now become angry and bitter and harsh and hostile with you. Well, if you are not practicing this aspect of equanimity where you're treating everyone equally, it means that, you go to work and maybe you take in some donuts for your best friend at work, but you don't take donuts into the office for the other 4 or 5 or 8 people that are in the office. And now they get jealous because of their cravings, and they don't have sympathetic joy in their mind because they're not training on this path. And when they're experiencing those painful feelings of jealousy, they're going to attribute those painful feelings to you because they don't understand the wisdom of the Four Noble Truths and that their mind is causing these discontent feelings in themselves. So now they're going to want to push you aside. They're going to try to have aversion and push you away because they don't like these painful feelings, and they think by pushing you away that that's going to help them to not have these painful feelings. Or they're going to be bitter and harsh and hostile to you through their intentions, speech, and actions, or they're going to start putting their expectations on you and trying to control you. So if you go into the office with just a couple of donuts for your best friend at the office, now you've just alienated these other 4, 5, 8 people. When they're having those painful feelings of jealousy and envy, they're going to think you're causing it. So what the Buddha is doing is he's teaching you to protect your mind and protect your relationships so that you can practice in a way that you treat everyone equally. So take donuts for everybody, right? Or if you just would like to get donuts for your best friend, take that person out to lunch. Go do it out of the view of everybody else, right? Go take that person out and buy them a donut or buy them a meal outside of the view of everybody else. Or if you have children, it's important that you treat all your children equally. Right? If you're getting something for one, be sure you get it for the others. When I was growing up, when it would be my birthday, my grandmother would give me presents, but there was a present or two there for my sister too on my birthday. And the same thing would happen on my sister's birthday, is I would have a couple of presents there, right? And this was helping everybody to be not jealous, right? And not be envious, right? This is like a great way to practice. Or say you're having a party at your house, you would like to invite all your neighbors, right? Of course, they're not all going to come. But if you don't have a craving for them to come, when only a few of them come, you'll be okay. But at least you practiced equanimity, treating everyone equally. So now you don't have this gossip and slandering going on in the community where people are envious and jealous that you invited some people, but you didn't invite everybody. So this other aspect of equanimity, you need to look at the root word of equanimity, which is equal, and treating all beings equally, and being sure that you're doing that in all the different settings that you're in. So these 4 aspects of the Brahma Viharas, which the Brahmin were teaching to dwell closer with God, because of course, if you practice these and you are interested in a relationship with God, it is going to bring you closer to God. But the way that the Buddha casted this is that they're wholesome qualities to be able to cultivate that are going to eliminate certain unwholesome qualities from your mind. Because by bringing in the wholesome, it's actually going to eliminate the unwholesome. So by bringing in the loving kindness, it's going to eliminate anger, hatred, ill will, and even the slightest dislike, even the frustration and resentment and bitterness towards others and towards yourself as well. If you have negative self-talk or inner dialogue that's diminishing and degrading, cultivating loving kindness within your own mind towards others and towards yourself will help you eliminate that. The healthy mental state of compassion is going to eliminate indifference and this worry and anxiety. The sympathetic joy is going to help you eliminate the jealousy and envy. The equanimity is going to help you eliminate that shaking up, that unsteady and uncalm mind, so that you can get to calmness and composure. And then also treat all beings equally, so that now you're not treating one group one way and another group another way, where they can potentially have jealousy, and now they're going to take it out on you because they're seeing you as the source of their painful feelings. So you might think of these as 4 healthy mental states. That's the best way to think of them, even though we might refer to them as the Brahma Viharas, and we understand where that name comes from and why the Buddha taught them. But it's more important to understand that they're healthy mental states that are eliminating certain unwholesome qualities that are going to cause burden to your own mind to be carrying around things like anger and hatred and ill will and things like this. So let me know what questions you guys have here. You can put that into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, or you can raise your hand in Zoom and ask any questions that you like. All right, Tonka, go ahead, ma'am.
Teacher David, when it comes to sympathetic joy, we do want to bubble up it in our mind, but I'm not sure exactly how to do it. Like, what are exactly practical advices that you can give us to bubble up it more in our minds?
Sure. So the first step, of course, is to practice the Eightfold Path. That's like the very beginning. The core central teaching is practicing the Eightfold Path, because that's going to knock down your cravings, desires, attachments, and that's going to eliminate a lot of the unwholesomeness in the mind, because where jealousy is coming from is the craving, desire, attachment. So you'd like to practice the entire Eightfold Path, having learned it with the original words of the Buddha, committing it to your memory and practicing it on a day-to-day basis. That's going to help you to automatically be improving the mind in multiple respects, right? Once you've got that and you're bringing your practice up to that and you're practicing the Eightfold Path for an extended period of time, part of that Eightfold Path is that you have mindfulness or awareness of mind, which is the seventh factor of the Eightfold Path. And then the sixth factor is right effort. Now, whenever you see with your mindfulness that there's unwholesome qualities in your mind, you cut that off and let that go, eliminate it through applying right effort. And then you apply the right effort to rise up the wholesome qualities in the mind. So when you bring your practice up to the Eightfold Path and you're practicing all the factors of the Eightfold Path, you live your life that way for an extended period of time. And now you need to go through enough situations where you're applying the Eightfold Path. So you probably don't encounter a situation daily where there's the potential for jealousy or envy, but you will experience this occasionally, right? So you're at work, or your friend calls you, or you see something on Facebook or what have you, a post, wherever you're with your mindfulness, you're noticing jealousy or envy arising. You need to catch it with your mindfulness, noticing that that's occurring, and then apply right effort to cut it off and let it go. So you're going to need to live your life with this Eightfold Path memorized for an extended period of time. And now you watch over the mind with your mindfulness and apply right effort whenever you see jealousy and envy in this example. The way you might think about these four healthy mental states is almost like a tool belt. And you need to pull out the tool that you need at any given time. So if you notice a symptom of jealousy or envy in the mind, even the slightest little bit, if you know the Brahma Viharas, if you know these four healthy mental states, you can pull out the antidote or the prescription or the tool that is needed to get rid of that envy or jealousy. And you know that that's sympathetic joy. So you need to just bring your practice up to the Eightfold Path, live your life that way for an extended period of time. Whenever you see jealousy or envy coming up, cut it off, let it go, and bring in the sympathetic joy. And now as you do that repeatedly, eventually you'll be able to see in multiple countless situations where your mind in the past would get jealous or envious, you're no longer experiencing that. Okay, let me see. I don't see any other questions anywhere. All right, so now let's move to the next chapter. Is there someone who would like to read this next one? This is chapter 86. Okay, Ihan, go ahead, ma'am.
Thank you, Teacher David. The difference between the instructed noble disciple and uninstructed worldling. Monks, there are these four kinds of persons found existing in the world. What for? 1. Here, monks, distant from sense desires, distant from unwholesome mental states, enters and resides in the first jhana, which is with thinking and pondering, based in seclusion, filled with excitement and joy. He enjoys it, motivated towards it, and finds satisfaction in it. If he is firm in it, focused on it, often resides in it, and has not lost it when he dies, he is reborn in companionship with the heavenly beings of Brahma's company. The lifespan of the heavenly beings of Brahma's company is an eon. The worldling remains there all his life, and when he has completed the entire lifespan of those heavenly beings, he goes to hell, to the animal realm, or to the realm of afflicted spirits. But the perfectly enlightened one's disciple remains there all his life, and when he has completed the entire lifespan of those heavenly beings, he attains final nibbana in that very same state of existence. This is the distinction, the disparity, the difference between the instructed noble disciple and the uninstructed worldling. That is, when there is future destination and rebirth. 2. Again, some person with the subsiding of thinking and pondering, by gaining inner tranquility and oneness of mind, he enters and resides in the second jhana, which is without thinking and pondering, based in concentration, filled with excitement and joy. He enjoys it, motivated towards it, and finds satisfaction in it. If he is firm in it, focused on it, often resides in it, and has not lost it when he dies, he is reborn in companionship with the heavenly beings of streaming radiance. The lifespan of the heavenly beings of streaming radiance is 2 eons. The worldling remains there all his life, and when he has completed the entire lifespan of those heavenly beings, he goes to hell, to the animal realm, or to the realm of afflicted spirits. But the perfectly enlightened one's disciple remains there all his life, and when he has completed the entire lifespan of those heavenly beings, he attains final nibbana in that very same state of existence. This is the distinction, the disparity, the difference between the instructed noble disciple and the uninstructed worldling, that is, when there is future destination and rebirth. 3. Again, some person with a fading away of excitement remaining imperturbable, mindful and clearly aware, he experiences in himself the joy of which the noble ones say, peaceful is he who resides with equanimity and mindfulness. He enters the third jhana, he enjoys it, motivated towards it, and finds satisfaction in it. If he is firm in it, focused on it, often resides in it, and has not lost it when he dies, he is reborn in companionship with the heavenly beings of refulgent glory. The lifespan of the heavenly beings of refulgent glory is 4 eons. The worldling remains there all his life, and when he has completed the entire lifespan of those heavenly beings, he goes to hell, to the animal realm, or to the realm of afflicted spirits. But the perfectly enlightened one's disciple remains there all his life, and when he has completed the entire lifespan of those heavenly beings, he attains final nibbana in that very same state of existence. This is the distinction, the disparity, the difference between the instructed noble disciple and the uninstructed worldling. That is, when there is future destination and rebirth. 4. Again, some person having given up pleasure and pain, and with the fading away of former gladness and sadness, he enters and resides in the 4th jhana, which is beyond pleasure and pain, and purified by equanimity and mindfulness. He enjoys it, motivated towards it, and finds satisfaction in it. If he is firm in it, focused on it, often resides in it, and has not lost it when he dies, he is reborn in companionship with the heavenly beings of great fruit. The lifespan of the heavenly beings of great fruit is 500 eons. The worldling remains there all his life, and when he has completed the entire lifespan of those heavenly beings, he goes to hell, to the animal realm, or to the realm of afflicted spirits. But the perfectly enlightened one's disciple remains there all his life, and when he has completed the entire lifespan of those heavenly beings, he attains final nibbana in that very same state of existence. This is the distinction, the disparity, the difference between the instructed noble disciple and the uninstructed worldling. That is, when there is future destination, and rebirth. These monks are the 4 kinds of persons found existing in the world. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Yihang. So here, the Buddha is talking about someone who studied with him. That's the instructed noble disciple. A noble disciple is an individual who's studied deeply. We might say this is like a deep practitioner of the teachings of the Buddha. And then this uninstructed worldling, we might refer to as a non-practitioner, someone who hasn't been exposed to the teachings of the Buddha and hasn't taken the opportunity to learn and grow and develop on the path to enlightenment. These are 2 different individuals. One person's going to have deeper wisdom. They're going to have been working on reducing the pollutions of their mind and making wiser and wiser decisions. An uninstructed worldling or a non-practitioner will have no idea of things like the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path and the 5 precepts and meditation training and things like this. So they're going to be really struggling in the world and having all kinds of struggles. And when these 2 individuals die, what the Buddha is saying is that they're going to have different experiences. That let's just say they both went to the heavenly realm, because that is possible. Sometimes people think that there's only one door into a particular realm, like the heavenly realm. That would be permanence if there's only one door. If you've been studying the teachings of the Buddha, you know that you can get into the heavenly realm through the 3rd stage of enlightenment as a non-returner. You can get into the heavenly realm through the jhanas if you were in one of the jhanas. But even if you weren't even practicing the teachings of the Buddha, you could still potentially be born into the heavenly realm. It's not like there's belief here in the teachings of the Buddha that you have to believe his teachings in order to get to enlightenment. Instead, the Buddha is describing the natural laws. And people can learn these natural laws in lots of different ways. And if you're learning these natural laws and you're training your mind to a certain degree, if you're learning about it's unwise to kill, steal, have sexual misconduct, lie, and take substances that cause heedlessness, and you might have learned that from grandma or grandpa, right? And now you're practicing that. That's reducing the pollution in your mind to a certain degree. And these are the natural laws. They're affecting you whether you're aware of it or not. So your rebirth isn't determined on whether you believe something or not. It's based on what's the condition of your mind at the time of death. And the condition of your mind can be any level of a pollution based on what it is that you've learned and been exposed to throughout your life. So the Buddha here is referring to the 4 jhanas. That's what he's talking about here in the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th aspect of this particular teaching, is that he's talking about someone who's gotten into the heavenly realm through having acquired the jhanas as an instructed noble disciple. But then there's also this uninstructed worldling that has gotten into the heavenly realm. And now their results are going to be different. That the uninstructed worldling, after their lifespan in the heavenly realm, they're going to be reborn into the hell, animal realm, or afflicted spirits. This is helpful for you because you can see that the heavenly realm is not permanent, and that beings in the heavenly realm can be reborn into the hell, animal realm, or afflicted spirits, because oftentimes they're complacent. In the heavenly realm, they're experiencing exclusively pleasant feelings, and they tend to not have motivation to learn and practice and train their mind to get to enlightenment. So they could potentially be born down into the animal realm or the afflicted spirit realm or even in hell. This is a possibility. So oftentimes people are taught that the heavenly realm is permanent and it's eternal life, and the hell realm is permanent and it's eternal life, and someone else is sending you there and judging you based on that. Well, if you look around the world, you can see that that's not true. Because of the universal truth of impermanence, you can understand that the heavenly realm is impermanent and the hell realm is not permanent. And it's not anybody that's sending you anywhere, because it's your own decisions that are producing any particular result. It's cause and effect. It's the natural law of Gotama. So that uninstructed worldling is going to experience certain results that, yes, they're getting to the heavenly realm, but now they're going down to the lower realms because they haven't been learning and practicing the teachings, and they become complacent in that heavenly existence. But an individual who's learned and practiced the teachings of the Buddha to the level of getting to the jhanas, that's what he's talking about here, that individual knows the teachings to a certain degree. And your residual memories from life to life are oftentimes moved into this new mind. And now these beings that have learned with the Buddha in the heavenly realm, they're going to be able to learn and practice because they've had exposure to them before. And the result that they're going to experience is getting to enlightenment. And now they've escaped the cycle of rebirth. So it can happen in this way that the Buddha is describing here, but also someone can make their way to the third stage of enlightenment and experience exactly the same thing that the Buddha is talking about here, which is in that third stage of enlightenment, there would be rebirth into the heavenly realm. They would get to enlightenment in that next existence. So there's not just one door into this heavenly realm, and it's the natural laws that the Buddha is describing of how this is all occurring. So the things that you can take away from this entire discourse is you can understand that the heavenly realm is not permanent, that beings can be reborn from the heavenly realm down into the lower realms of hell, animal, and afflicted spirits, that it's much better to learn and practice the teachings of the Buddha here in this life. And there's no reason why you can't get to enlightenment in this life. But if for any reason you fall short of that, there's the potential to be reborn in the heavenly realm and actually get to enlightenment in that existence. So here's a great discourse to be able to help you understand all of those things. So let me know what questions you guys have here. You can put that into Facebook, YouTube, or in Zoom, or you can raise your hand in Zoom and ask any questions that you like. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions anywhere. So we'll move to the next one. This is 87. Someone like to read this one? Let me just look over this for a second. I think it might be very similar. I look at these before class, but this one is actually very, very similar. We can read it though. That way we'll just understand what's being taught, and then it's going to be a similar description as what I just shared. But Keely, looks like you volunteered. Go ahead, ma'am.
Thank you. Rebirth of one reflecting on impermanence. Monks, there are these four kinds of persons found existing in the world. What for? 1. Here monks, distant from sense desires, distant from unwholesome mental states, enters and resides in the first jhana, which is with thinking and pondering, bathed in seclusion, filled with excitement and joy. He contemplates whatever objects there related to form, feeling, perception, volitional formations, choices, decisions, and consciousness as impermanent, as discontentness, as a disease, as a boil, as a dart, as misery, as an affliction, as alien, as disintegrating, as empty, as non-self. With the breakup of the body after death, he is reborn in companionship with the heavenly beings of the pure abodes. This is a rebirth not shared with worldlings. 2. Again, some person with the subsiding of thinking and pondering, by gaining inner tranquility and oneness of mind, he enters and resides in the second jhana, which is without thinking and pondering, based in concentration, filled with excitement and joy. He contemplates whatever objects there related to form, feeling, perception, volitional formations, choices, decisions, and consciousness as impermanent, as discontentness, as a disease, as a boil, as a dart, as misery, as an affliction, as alien, as disintegrating, as empty, as non-self. With the breakup of the body after death, he is reborn in companionship with the heavenly beings of the pure abodes. This is a rebirth not shared with worldlings. 3. With the fading away of excitement, remaining imperturbable, unable to be upset or excited, calm, serene, mindful and clearly aware, he experiences in himself the joy of which the noble ones say. Peaceful is he who resides with equanimity and mindfulness. He enters the third jhana. He contemplates whatever objects there related to form, feeling, perception, volitional formations, choices, decisions, and consciousness as impermanent, as discontentness, as a disease, as a boil, as a dart, as misery, as an affliction, as alien, as disintegrating, as empty, as non-self. With the breakup of the body after death, he is reborn in companionship with the heavenly beings of the pure abodes. This is a rebirth not shared with worldlings. For, with having given up pleasure and pain, and with the fading away of former gladness and sadness, he enters and resides in the fourth jhana, which is beyond pleasure and pain, and purified by equanimity and mindfulness. He contemplates whatever objects they are related to form, feeling, perception, volitional formations, choices, decisions, and consciousness as impermanent, as discontentness, as a disease, as a boil, as a dart, as misery, as affliction, as alien, as disintegrating, as empty, as non-self. With the breakup of the body after death, he is reborn in companionship with the heavenly beings of the pure abodes. This is a rebirth not shared with worldlings. These monks are the four kinds of persons found existing in the world. That's all. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Keely. So this is where it's helpful to understand to never take the Buddha's teachings in isolation, right? Because if you ran across that first discourse that we just read previously, and he talked about these are the four types of people existing in the world, you might think like those are the only four types of people existing in the world, because oftentimes these teachings are spread out over multiple books. Here, I've got them consolidated for you. But if you just took these teachings in isolation, you might just think, oh, those are the only four kinds of people existing in the world. But that's not true. The Buddha oftentimes does follow-up discourses like this, where he's describing another four type and another four type and another four type. So you need to look at the totality of his teachings. And by learning them extensively in the large collection of them, you'll be able to see a wider variety of what he's actually teaching here, because this is another four type of people, right? So it's still based in the four jhanas, but then he's adding this extra piece here where he's talking essentially about the three universal truths and the five aggregates and things of this nature. So he's basically saying that individuals who have studied and practiced his teachings deeply, training the mind, reducing the pollution to a certain degree, they're going to have a certain rebirth that is an improved rebirth versus someone who has not learned and practiced his teachings. And it's not because of belief, it's because the inability to be able to train your mind and reduce your pollution. That's what's inhibiting you from a certain rebirth. But of course, the goal in this path is not to be reborn at all. The goal is to actually get to enlightenment. But the Buddha is helping you to be able to see this cause and effect so that you understand what is actually happening through these natural laws. So let me know what questions you guys have here on this particular chapter. Okay, I don't see any questions. So let's go to the next one. Is there someone who would like to read chapter 88? It's about 2¼ pages. Okay, I saw Keely and I saw Vibhav. Maybe then I saw Richard. Keely, would you like to read again? Oh, okay. So she put her hand down. You're not interested?
Yes, actually, I can read.
Okay, if you'd like to read, then we'll go to Vibhav, and then we'll finish out with Richard for the next three chapters.
Okay, thank you. The future destination of the instructed noble disciple filled with the Brahma Viharas versus the uninstructed worldlings. Monks, there are these four kinds of persons found existing in the world. What for? 1. Here monks, some person resides cultivating one quarter with a mind filled with loving kindness. Likewise the second quarter, the third quarter, and the fourth quarter. Thus above, below, across, and everywhere. And to all as to himself, he resides filling the entire world with a mind filled with loving kindness, tremendous, distinguished, measureless, without hostility, without ill will. He enjoys it, motivated towards it, and finds satisfaction in it. If he is firm in it, focused on it, often resides in it, and has not lost when he dies, he is reborn in companionship with the heavenly beings of Brahma's God's company. The lifespan of the heavenly beings of Brahma God's company is an eon, indescribable period of time. The wandering remains there all his life, and when he has completed the entire lifespan of those heavenly beings, he goes to hell, to the animal realm, or to the realm of afflicted spirits. But the perfectly enlightened one's disciple remains there all his life, and when he has completed the entire lifespan of those heavenly beings, he obtains final nibbana, final enlightenment in that very same state of existence. This is the distinction, the disparity, the difference between the instructed noble disciple and the instructed worldling. That is when there is future destination and rebirth. 2. Again, some person recites cultivating 1/4 with a mind filled with compassion. Likewise, the 2nd quarter, the 3rd quarter, and the 4th quarter, thus above, below, across, and elsewhere, everywhere, and to all as to himself, he recites filling the entire world with a mind filled with compassion, tremendous, distinguished, measureless, without hostility, without ill will. He enjoys it, motivated towards it, and finds satisfaction in it. If he is firm in it, focused on it, often resides in it, and has not lost it when he dies, he is reborn in companionship with the heavenly beings of streaming radiance. The lifespan of the heavenly beings of streaming radiance is 2 eons. The wandering remains there all his life, and when he has completed the entire lifespan of those heavenly beings, he goes to hell, to the animal realm, or to the realm of afflicted spirits. But the perfectly enlightened one's disciple remains there all his life, and when he has completed the entire lifespan of those heavenly beings, he attains final nibbana, final enlightenment in that very same state of existence. This is the distinction, the disparity, the difference between the instructed noble disciple and the instructed wandering. That is when there is future destination and rebirth. 3. Again, some person recites cultivating 1/4 with a mind filled with sympathetic joy. Likewise, the 2nd quarter, the 3rd quarter, and the 4th quarter, thus above, below, across, and everywhere, and to all as to himself, he recites filling the entire world with a mind filled with sympathetic joy, tremendous, distinguished, measureless, without hostility, without ill will. He enjoys it, motivated towards it, and finds satisfaction in it. If he is firm in it, focused on it, often resides in it, and has not lost when he dies, he is reborn in companionship with the heavenly beings of refulgent glory. The lifespan of the heavenly beings of refulgent glory of 4 eons. The wandering remains there all his life, and when he has completed the entire lifespan of those heavenly beings, he goes to hell, to the animal realm, or to the realm of afflicted spirits. But the perfectly enlightened one's disciple remains there all his life, and when he has completed the entire lifespan of those heavenly beings, he attains final nibbana, final enlightenment in that very same state of existence. This is the distinction, the disparity, the difference between the instructed noble disciple and the uninstructed wandering. That is when there is future destination and rebirth. 4. Again, some person here recites cultivating 1/4 with a mind filled with equanimity. Likewise, the 2nd quarter, the 3rd quarter, and the 4th quarter, thus above, below, across, and everywhere, and to all as to himself, he resides filling the entire world with a mind filled with equanimity, tremendous, distinguished, measureless, without hostility, without ill will. He enjoys it, cultivated towards it, and finds satisfaction in it. If he is firm in it, focused on it, often resides in it, and has not lost it when he dies. He is reborn in companionship with the heavenly beings of great fruit. The lifespan of the heavenly beings of great fruit is 500 eons. The wanderings remains there all his life, and when he has completed the entire lifespan of those heavenly beings, he goes to hell, to the animal realm, or to the realm of afflicted spirits. But the perfectly enlightened one's disciple remains there all his life, and when he has completed the entire lifespan of those heavenly beings, he attains final nibbana, final enlightenment in that very state of existence. This is the distinction, the disparity, the difference between the instructed noble disciple and the uninstructed wandering. That is, when there is future destination and rebirth. These monks are the four kinds of persons found existing in the world. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Keely. So this is very similar to ones that we've just been studying, but here the Buddha is bringing in the Brahma Viharas and saying that someone who's cultivated these are going to experience these kinds of things. So what you can do in this whole series of multiple discourses is you can start collecting up the things that you need to practice in order to be able to make your way to enlightenment. Because remember, the same things that lead to rebirth in these heavenly realms or realm is the same thing that you would need to be able to get to enlightenment. So not that you're interested in being reborn in the heavenly realm, but instead you'd like to get to enlightenment in this life. You can start collecting up all these different things that he's describing that you need to be able to learn and practice to be able to train your mind to get to enlightenment. These are all things that you learn about in all the programs that we have, but nonetheless, you have the words of the Buddha to confirm that what you're learning with me are the same things that the Buddha actually taught. So then you can have confidence in what you're learning are the actual teachings of the Buddha. And then when you're implementing those in your practice and you see the transformation of your mind as a result of practicing these, you'll know the truth and you'll have wisdom and you'll know that you're practicing the true teachings because you see the condition of your mind improving. So there's the similar things that we've been talking about previously here. Just now, it's the Brahma Viharas instead of the jhanas. So let me know what questions you guys have. Looks like Vibhav has a question. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, David. And the one small question is that when he's describing the rebirth of the uninstructed worldlings, and they're saying it's basically go to animal hell or animal or afflicted spirits. For some reason, he's omitted like the human. They could come back to being human beings as well, right?
Yeah.
But for some reason, that's been omitted here.
Yeah, he's saying that that's not the case, that uninstructed worldling is going to go from heaven down to hell, animal or afflicted spirits. They're not going to come to the human realm.
But there's not explicitly said it. It may be just the afflicted spirit, like to the animal realm. He goes to hell, to animal or realm of afflicted spirit, but then saying that he may come back to human as well.
He's not saying that. So he's saying they will be reborn into hell, the animal realm, or afflicted spirits. That the human realm is not something that being is going to be reborn into.
Okay, so that's pretty clear then, that if they're okay.
Yeah, you shouldn't ever read into the teachings of the Buddha trying to interpret them or insert your own thoughts into them. You need to be able to see exactly what he said and see it there and not try to insert any thoughts that might be in your own mind. This would be to not cling to your own perceptions.
No, because I guess the reason I'm asking is because I didn't see it here, but in other discourses, we have said that like they could be born into any realm. And so this seems a little bit different from what has been said in the other discourses where any human being who goes into human or to heavenly realm could be reborn back into human. But it seems like this was making more clear that if you're not practicing the teachings and you somehow make it to heaven, you will not make it back to human realm. So that's a slight confusion I have here in what we've been said before and what's been clarified here.
Yeah, these are two different discourses. And here, this is a refinement to be able to see more clearly. So while it's possible to be reborn from the heavenly realm into the human realm, that is possible. What the Buddha is saying here is that for an individual who's uninstructed, that's not what's going to occur.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Okay, it looks like...
Sorry, one last... Can I ask my last question here?
Mm-hmm.
So I guess on the basis of, I guess the uninstructed worldling is also getting into heavenly realm on the basis of wholesome karma being generated, right? I mean, whatever they've done without even looking at the teachings, but they have generated a bunch of wholesome karma that has given them the I guess in some way passage to the heavenly realm. And so, if you can clarify why they would not come back to human realm, even though they have generated wholesome karma, what would they have to do in like the heavenly realm that would like take the human realm out of their next rebirth?
Yeah, so
you can clarify that a little bit.
Yeah, so there needs to be a certain amount of wholesome karma to be generated to get into the heavenly realm. That was in their previous existence prior to the heavenly realm. But once in the heavenly realm, they're still generating karma in that heavenly realm. So they could generate unwholesome karma in that heavenly realm. Just being complacent is going to generate unwholesome karma, right? Just taking that by itself is that the mind isn't going to be moving forward in getting less pollution, that the mind's going to now be accumulating more pollution. Even though residing in the heavenly realm, there's more pollution that's accumulating. So it's not a matter of what they've done, right? It's not like somebody's judging your conduct. It's about the status of your mind at the time of death. So if there's complacency, there's going to be an accumulation of pollution. Thus, at the time of death, there's more pollution than when you came into the heavenly realm. You had less pollution prior to coming into the heavenly realm, but now through complacency, the mind has been allowed to accumulate more pollution, and now it's going back down to the hell realm, the animal realm, afflicted spirits.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let me see if we have questions anywhere else. Okay, I don't see any there. So Vibhav, I think you were next to read this chapter 89. Let me just make sure. We might have some very similar chapters here. Yeah, this is the similar one to previously. Yeah, this is very similar. So this is almost identical to the two ago. Okay, so this is, instead of the jhanas, once again, it's the Brahmaviharas, but then an individual not only has practiced the Brahmaviharas, but they understand the three universal truths as well. So I don't know that we need to read this one again because it's very similar to what we've already been reading. If anybody has questions on it, you guys are welcome to ask those. Let's look at this one for a moment. This one is slightly different. This one's actually referring to the attainments beyond the jhanas. Let me see here how far this one goes. We can read this one just in case you guys have questions about those attainments. So go ahead, Vibhav, if you'd like to read this one. And sorry, Richard, we don't have another one for you to read after this.
The distinction between the instructed noble disciple and formless attainments and the uninstructed worldling. Monks, there are these three kinds of persons found existing in the world. What three? Here, monks, with the complete overcoming of perception of forms, with the passing away of perceptions of sensory impingement, with non-attention of perceptions of diversity, perceiving space as infinite, some person enters and resides in the base of the infinity of space. He enjoys it, motivated towards it, and finds satisfaction in it. If he is firm in it, focused on it, often resides in it, and has not lost it when he dies, he is reborn in companionship with the heavenly beings at the base of the infinity of space. The lifespan of the heavenly beings at the base of the infinity of space is 20,000 eons. The worldling remains dead all his life, and when he has completed the entire lifespan of those heavenly beings, he goes to hell, to the animal realm, and to the realm of afflicted spirits. But the perfectly enlightened one's disciple remains there all his life, and when he has completed the entire lifespan of those heavenly beings, he attains final nibbana, final enlightenment, in that very same state of existence. This is the distinction, the disparity, the difference between the instructed noble disciple and the uninstructed worldling. That is, when there is future destination and rebirth. Again, by completely overcoming the base of the infinity of space, perceiving consciousness is infinite, someone here enters and resides at the base of the infinity of consciousness. He enjoys it, motivated towards it, and finds satisfaction in it. If he is firm in it, focused on it, often resides in it, and has not lost it when he dies, he is reborn in the companionship with the heavenly beings at the base of the infinity of consciousness. The lifespan of the heavenly beings at the base of the infinity of consciousness is 40,000 eons. The worldling remains there all his life, and when he has completed the entire lifespan of the heavenly beings, he goes to hell, to the animal realm, or to the realm of afflicted spirits. But the perfectly enlightened one's disciple remains there all his life, and when he has completed the entire lifespan of those heavenly beings, he attains final nibbana, final enlightenment, in that very same state of existence. This is the distinction, the disparity, the difference between the instructed noble disciple and the uninstructed worldling. That is, when there is future destination and rebirth. Again, monks, by completely overcoming the base of the infinity of consciousness, perceiving there is nothing, some person here enters and resides in the base of nothingness. He enjoys it, motivated towards it, and finds satisfaction in it. If he is firm in it, focused on it, often resides in it, and has not lost it when he dies, he is reborn in companionship with heavenly beings of the base of nothingness. The lifespan of the heavenly beings of the base of nothingness is 60,000 eons. The worldling remains there all his life, and when he has completed the entire lifespan of this heavenly being, he goes to hell, to the animal realm, and to the realm of afflicted spirits. But the perfectly enlightened one's disciple remains there all his life, and when he has completed the entire lifespan of these heavenly beings, he attains final nibbana, final enlightenment, in that very same state of existence. This is the distinction, the disparity, the difference between the instructed noble disciple and in the uninstructed worldling. That is, when there is future destination and rebirth. These monks have three kinds of persons found existing in the world. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Vibhav. So there's attainments beyond the jhanas in the 4 stages of enlightenment. Those are the main attainments that someone is working towards on the path to enlightenment. And every single being that gets to enlightenment will experience the 4 jhanas in the 4 stages of enlightenment. But there's other attainments that are not part of those 8 main attainments. And I've documented those through the words of the Buddha and words from me in volume 7. You can find those there. You can study them. And then if you have any questions, you're welcome to ask me. I haven't committed those to memory because not everybody actually attains those and experiences those. You'll see that when I'm describing them, which ones people attain and which ones not everybody attains. So you can read those and study those. It's something that's there for you. And the Buddha is now essentially saying the same thing that we've been studying all along through all these discourses, but related to those attainments. Someone who's attained those is going to have a different experience than someone who is an uninstructed worldling or a non-practitioner. So let me know if you guys have questions here on this chapter. Okay, I'm not seeing. Oh, it looks like Vibhav might have a question. Go ahead, sir.
It's just one question, I mean, there is my perception, but to get to that level of, for an unrestricted worldling, to get to that level of, heavenly existence, without having gone through some level of teaching is kind of hard to imagine.
Yeah, so it's what I shared before, is that it's based on the level of pollution in the mind. An individual can stumble into the jhanas. This is something that happens all the time. Like I get contacted by people that have never studied the teachings of the Buddha. They contact me. They're like, hey, I see that you teach the teachings of the Buddha. I learned and practiced meditation at different times. It wasn't from the Buddha. It wasn't any of that stuff. But just on my own, I've been kind of like dabbling with things here and there. And I experienced these 2 weeks of, all this bliss and excitement and blah, blah, blah. And I've never experienced it since then. I don't know what happened and it's gone away. And, so this person has kind of essentially stumbled into the jhanas without actually even having learned the teachings of the Buddha. And now their mind regressed out of that, right? Because remember, it's all pollutions, right? It's all about pollutions of the mind. And you can learn about these things without even studying the teachings of the Buddha. That you can learn, like, for example, when I was growing up as a kid, I used to eat a lot of ice cream, and I would go to the ice cream at my grandparents' house, and they had these big tubs of ice cream, and I would always eat these ice cream. And my grandfather used to always tell me not to hang at this ice cream, right? Essentially what he was telling me to do is not to crave it, right? And he was teaching me how to restrain my mind from craving the ice cream. And he would even do things to make sure that I was able to do that. So I was kind of being guided in that way without him talking about the Buddha or craving or attachments or any of these kinds of things, that he just understood this young boy, 12 years old, eating ice cream 3 times a day wasn't wise. And he would, teach me to restrain my mind without using that language. Right. So these are the natural laws that are affecting you. And it's not just the fact that you've seen the teachings of the Buddha that are going to allow you to be able to make your way to the heavenly realm. You can stumble into these things through other ways and having other mentors and people that are teaching you things here and there. And because it's the natural laws and it's affecting you, whether you're aware of it or not, it's based on the level of pollution in your mind, not whether you've actually studied any particular set of teachings. But have you gained some level of insight or wisdom about the mind in whichever way, and now you've practiced that to a certain extent, reduced your pollution, and now you're experiencing this rebirth in the heavenly realm.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, I'm going to check if we have any questions anywhere else. All right, I don't see any questions anywhere else, so I'm just going to end by thanking all of you guys. Thank you for reading. Thank you for your questions. Thank you for attending class and being interested in understanding the teachings of the Buddha and practicing them, because this is the very best thing you could ever do for yourself, for those around you, and all of humanity. So thank you for contributing to your growth and making the humanity a more and more peaceful place to exist for everybody. Next week, we're going to be in the next 10 chapters, which is chapters 91 through 100. So if you'd like to study those ahead of time, you can. And remember, you can get these books on our website. You can take it and go print it. You can get printed versions here at the temple, or you can get them on Amazon. On our website, they're available at no cost. And here at the temple, you're just reimbursing us for our printing costs. So you're more than welcome to get these and study along in the program. Tomorrow in our group learning program, which is great for people who are just starting out, we're going to be in Volume 1, Chapter 6. This is titled The Middle Way, Walking the Middle Way. And as you guys know, I teach in a more traditional method there, where I'm teaching 15, 20, 30 minutes, opening up for questions, teaching 15, 20, 30 minutes, opening up for questions. So that's a much better place for people who are just getting started. So that's what I'm going to be teaching tomorrow as part of that program. And then on Wednesday, in the morning, I'm going to be teaching at the temple, doing meditation and opening up the questions that the students have. In the evening, I'm going to be doing the third part of a 4-part series on Buddhist chanting. So these are all options available for you for live classes, and then there's the recordings as well. So once again, thank you all, and perhaps I'll see you guys in a future class. Be well and take care. Sawadee ka.
Thank you again for watching. Enjoy your meditation. Look forward to seeing you online and answering any questions that you might have. Thank you so much.